ABCs of hitting. Now we're at B, which is the separation part of your swing. We just talked about load and how the load is so important in the sequence of going straight to your separation, okay? It's basically like ABC. The reason I call it that is because if you're reciting your ABCs, you have to say A before you say B. You have to say B before you say C. That's the reason. It's in order, okay? So, as you're doing your load, you're going to have a natural movement of your body coming backwards. You're gathering that power onto your backside. You're gathering that weight onto your backside to initiate your separation. Now, learn the rubber band theory, because this is what I use when I teach, and this is what I'm teaching you right now. The rubber band theory is we're pretending there's a rubber band tied around our hands and tied around our front foot, which is our stride foot. As after we load, we create separation where the front foot is striding forward, positive movement, and the hands are moving backward as a negative movement. My torso is where the center of gravity is, and I keep that resistance there, and I'm creating resistance among my torso, my glutes, my quads, my hamstrings, my whole entire body is creating that tension. Think about it as bringing back a slingshot, getting ready to unload that slingshot. That's what that separation is that follows the load, okay? So as I get myself in position, I want to make sure that every single time I do this, it's consistent and I'm doing it the same way every single time. So, as I get in my stance, I load and I separate. When I stride, I want to stride on the ball of foot. Always stride on the ball of foot. Some guys will have a slightly open stride. That's okay. Make sure that our hip and our knee is not opening because we don't want to open that front side. It creates back drag and we come around and hook around the baseball. So make sure that your torso stays closed, creating resistance. That bottom half is going to initiate the rotation. But I'm going to get to that here in a minute. That's part of seeing the swing. But understand that separation is creating tension. We're loading. So let's give you a couple examples. For me, this is where I was. Slightly open stance, wide stance, load, separation. Boom. Real short and real simple, okay? That's why the drills that you're going to see are important that I have listed as part of the B part of the ABCs drill section so you can kind of create that muscle memory. Now you got other guys that might have a leg kick, so they got a little bit more movement here. They've got a leg kick, they're creating their load. Separation happens after that. As their foot's coming forward, the hand's coming back, creating that rubber band tension. When the foot comes down, the ball of foot hits, the heel is going to plant. The heel's going to plant, and that's what initiates C in the ABCs. So understand before we get to C, separation is the hands coming backward, creating a 45-degree angle. As the hands are coming backward, the foot is coming forward in the stride. We're striding up the ball of foot. If you have kids that have trouble striding on the ball of foot, tell them to stride on their big toe. It's going to help them kind of get that idea of what striding on the ball of foot should feel like. That way they're not striding on the heel and they're coming forward. Now let's go to a little bit more detail. When you get that separation, I don't want to see this front arm bar out. We got to keep flexion in this lead arm. The reason is that if this front arm bars out, it leads me to this separation point where I have nothing to do but to initiate my front side to get my barrel to the zone because my hands are going to drag. Keep flexion in that lead arm. I don't want to bar that arm out because it's going to create a longer swing than what we want, okay? Understand that. So, if you're watching yourself in front of the mirror, if you're seeing yourself do the separation, make sure that you have that. Have that slight flexion. That way you can initiate the proper sequence once you start your swing, okay? Also, when we get into that separation, I want to make sure not only that bat angle is at a 45-degree angle, but I don't want, and I use the term stiff wrist. Once we're here, we're creating that rhythm, and we have that little bit of swagger and sway. Once I start that separation, the wrists need to stop moving. And this is the reason. When I get to that finished position right before my launch, I don't want my barrel to drop. I don't want to be still moving my hands, and I don't want my barrel to come forward. I don't want it to come backward. Think about a slight tilt. The knob is going to point down at the catcher, okay? And we're going to have a slight tilt of the bat above the head in a 45-degree angle. That's what we're looking for right at the end of the separation point. I don't want to have loose wrists and my bat drops down because, again, we want a consistent separation point when we're getting into our separation part of our ABCs. If my bat and my wrists are still moving, I might be here, one load. I might be here, one load. Make sure, that's why I talk about knob at the catcher, slight tilt of the bat above the head, 45-degree angle, tension. What helps with that is you want to think about loading, and this is what I'm talking about with the separation. we want to load with our scap, okay, but we also want to load with our elbow. The scap is the shoulder blade right here. We're creating tension in that scap when we load, okay? That tension is a stretch reflex that's going to initiate the launching sequence of our swing. So when I load, I want to think about loading with that scap, but I'm also thinking about loading with my back elbow. So if my elbow's here, load with that elbow back. If I think about bringing my elbow back, that's going to initiate that tension and that stretch reflex I'm looking at to initiate my swing. That is so important, especially when you're reading off-speed pitches and you're seeing the pitch, because you want to keep that tension before we commit. If we lose that tension, our hand starts coming forward. We do not want to start coming forward in our swing when our foot's still in the process of coming down. The hands don't come forward. We don't start rotating until we start that heel plant, okay? Understand separation, heel plant, and we go. Now, lastly, when we do that separation, okay, we start our weight in our stance at 50-50. We load to 90-10. As we get back to our normal position, when I'm striding, our weight gets back to about 60-40, where the weight's still about 60% back here, 40% back here. You can even say 50-50 or 55-45, where we're still controlling our center of gravity, and as we're striding, that back knee is coming forward and my center of gravity is coming forward to the pitch, but not lunging forward. I don't want to lunge forward and my arm to bar. I'm still controlling my movement forward that's going to initiate that fire into the backside. The swing starts from the ground up, power starts from the ground up, the back side is where your power is. Never think about using the front side to swing, okay? Which brings us, after separation, to C, swing. So here we go, let's learn about the swing.